All right, we are back. Took a little 1 week hiatus, Missed out on probably the best week of the season so far with all that crazy action that there was last week, but here we are, back again to talk week 10.
We made it. And you know what? It's Preston's fault why we missed last week. I'm blaming him. Uh, but
I
what
mean,
time is it
I'm
today?
always
Like,
down to
like
blame Preston, so.
oh yeah. A matter of fact, I'm gonna add Aaron to that too. Aaron got caught up with a white girl, and it just messed up the whole schedule. So even though he's not on here, he's behind the scenes, and it just messed us up, you know. But we're here now. We made it, and I have a story time for y'all.
Let's hear it.
Um, So we were supposed to start this. It is 11 o'clock. We were supposed to start this at like 8, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Well, I had every intention of being here at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Got out of practice at like 6:30. Good to go. Well, there's this thing out here at the school that's called STUMO, and I was told it stands for student mobilization. It's some like Christian, religious student come together thing, and they talk about the word of Christ and things of that nature. And I usually don't really go to those, um, just because I feel like some just depends on it. Some of it just feels a little culty, if that makes sense. I don't mean to disrespect nobody, but it's how I feel about it sometimes. But um, I've been trying to trade for Saquon Barkley for a while in the league that I have with some of the D linemen, and this is the last Stumo of the semester. This would be also my last game of college football uh this week.
You're not coming
So
back
I'm
for year 10?
no, I'm not. Believe it or not. I could. And I told people I would come back under one condition, but I ain't gonna say that condition on stream. But um this was basically like I say, look, man. I mean, what I gotta do to get Saquon, man? His team is, I've been trying literally for like 5, 6 weeks, and I thought I've seen some good stuff. He's like, no, not getting rid of him. And the thing is, he's a Cowboys fan, so I thought it would be a little easier for me to grab Saquon because he's said multiple times that he hates Saquon and he hates how Saquon gets vultured by Jalen Hurts a lot of times with that damn tush push. Now I
Which we
don't
love
need
to see, by
Saquon.
the way. Absolutely love it.
Hate it. I don't have Jalen Hurts, so I hate it. Almost made a trade for Jalen Hurts earlier this season too, for Kyler Murray straight up, but the guy backed out on me. Good choice for him. Um, But I don't need Saquon. That team, my running backs are James Conner, James Cook, who I just traded for last week, um, Christian McCaffrey, who I traded for earlier this year. I traded Derrick Henry away. Which, fun fact, I had Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara for the first 2 weeks, so I could have had running backs 1 and 2 on my roster, which I've never done before. But I traded him away for CMC. So I have Alvin Kamara, CMC, James Connors, James Cook, um, and now I have Saquon because of this. So Saquon, CMC, James Conner, and Alvin Kamara. Because he said, man, I'll accept a trade for Saquon. If you send me something good, I will accept it if you come to Stumo with me. And I mean, this guy, he's such a good guy. Shout out to him. Love the dude to death. He's been trying to get me to Stumo since I got to this school a year and a half ago. So considering that, you know what? They call me Unc on the team too. So they're like, considering it's Unc's last week here, basically my classes are online, so I can really go home after this. Um, Graduate in December, so I'm done by the end of the year. So I was like, you know what? I'll go for him, and I also go for Saquon. So right when he saw me walk in there, he accepted the trade. DK Metcalf and James Cook. for Saquon, who I don't need. I also don't need DK. My receiver room is also pretty damn stacked with JJJ, Cooper Cup, Chris Olave, rest in peace, Cedric Tillman, Drake London. So don't need DK, don't need James Cook. Now I have Saquon, but that's my little story time of how I ended up with Saquon because I basically went to church. Um, so if that's not a sign for all of y'all to get out there and go to church, I don't know what is. Um, but it was a great experience outside of Saquon. Saquon's not. If I didn't get Saquon, I was okay with going. That was pretty good experience, pretty nice thing. But yeah, that's my story time of why I'm also late. Uh, but I did end up getting Saquon out of it, so I guess it's all right. Which leads us into the Eagles game. Uh, I know Dave, you don't have much to say about it.
Cowboys
I'm just
suck.
gonna say, yeah, Cowboys suck. Tush push is the most aggravating shit in all of football.
It's the most
Now that
beautiful
I have
play.
Saquon,
It's what football's intended to be. Physical,
sure.
just your line against my line. That's what the game's meant to be. That's what it was supposed to be before the forward pass corrupted things. This is ball. We love it.
Well, you want to make it ball? Let's do it with a fullback, or let's do it with Saquon, huh? Let's give it to the running back. Because I just feel like the statistics of Jalen Hurts, like, oh, it's like the third most rushing touchdowns out of all quarterbacks. Like, bro, 70% of those are him from the inch line getting pushed in his ass by his team. I don't count those as rushing TDs, and I don't think they should be counted as rushing TDs.
Hey,
What
he
should be
just knows
counted
how
as
to
rushing
take it in
TDs,
the ass.
you know what? On that note, you're right. You are right. He sure does. He absolutely does. Um, I wish it was Saquon instead, though.
And on that
Now,
note, it's a good thing we're not monetized because this wouldn't be.
but Jerry Jones is also the worst damn thing ever. He is. Watch how this transition is going to go. He's almost worse than Hitler. Um, Dave can already see where I'm going with that
I
transition.
can see where you're
Uh,
going with that, and for the people that can't see where he's going, demonetized times two.
so, Jerry Jones said he's not putting up a fucking curtain for the fucking team because he's like, oh, it's gonna be an advantage to us. Well, buddy, I'm gonna tell you what's not an advantage. Having the sun death ray beam in your players' eyes and they can't catch the ball. Um, that's not helping. But as far as being worse than Hitler, that leads us to the Giants. Cowboys suck. There ain't really much to talk about. They got their ass bust. They suck. They're unprepared. They need to blow the shit up. And rest in peace, Dak Prescott. Um, that
You
leads us
know,
to Germany.
as an American, I would just like to issue an apology to the entire country of Germany. I would like to apologize because we were the ones who were saying once Andy Dalton got hurt, watch this is Germany is going to end up being subjected to Bryce Young versus Daniel Jones, and boy did that matchup not disappoint. Daniel Jones, 22 for 37, 190 yards, averaging 5.1 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, two interceptions. Bryce Young, 15 for 25, 126 yards, 5 yards per attempt. He did have a touchdown and no picks, but when two quarterbacks combine for less passing yards than a good day from one quarterback, I mean, that just shows how bad they are. It was a good game if you liked running backs, I'll give you that, but I mean, Germany, we're sorry that for all the people who were there that this is the first and probably only football game that they'll ever go to, and this is your introduction to the sport. We're sorry.
You know, and I could tell people of Germany, well, it could have been worse. It really couldn't have, honestly. Uh, I don't even think a Saints team 2 weeks ago with Spencer Rattler would have been worse. Um, Daniel Jones is Adolf Hitler. If y'all didn't know, he's Adolf Hitler reincarnated, which is why I mentioned the Adolf Hitler thing. Um, I just don't understand the guy, and I don't understand how he's been a starting quarterback for 6 years, and his leash is that long. Now, I do predict that he will not be starting pretty soon. Um, and Cam Ward will be on the way to rescue that team.
Oh man,
Um,
he's not gonna rescue it.
he's not, but I mean, fuck. I mean, we've seen 6 years of goddamn
He'll
Daniel
rescue
Jones. I
Malik.
think
Malik's stats will be rescued by it, but I mean, there's no rescue in that team right now with how it is. I actually heard on a podcast earlier them say that as crazy as it is, they might argue that the Panthers have more reason for optimism in the coming years than the Giants. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that really just shows how dire things are for the Giants. When you're being compared to potentially being worse than the Panthers, and not just that you lost to them, but just your worst future than a team that traded away everything for a quarterback that won't be there next year, I mean, that's pretty bad.
I'm trying to think on that statement a little bit. Mm, in terms of skill players, the Giants beat them by far, in my opinion. Um, I think J.C. Horn is the best defender on both sides. Well, Brian Burns, who was a former Panther, so I guess all he knows is mediocrity. Um,
The
Chuba Hubbard,
Panthers do have a
you
better O
know,
line just by virtue of the Giants kind of hard to be worse than their O line.
they're kind of in similar positions because they both spent like what the fourth or fifth or sixth pick in the draft on an offensive lineman who, you know, kind of it's been okay, but leaves a lot to be desired. And I don't. I mean, the Panthers they have no skill players out of Xavier Leggett, but I don't know how much you're going to get out of Xavier Leggett, considering yeah he's a big body, but he doesn't have the route running of like a Michael Thomas when he was in his prime. He's not as athletically imposing as like a DK or an AJ Brown. So I don't really know how much you really get out of him, especially when your next best option is like a 32-year-old Adam Thielen coming off of IR with a hamstring injury. You got Chuba Hubbard, who you just paid a couple million, but a good chunk of millions to after you've paid Miles Sanders the year before to come there a bunch of millions of dollars. So that shit don't make sense. And then you draft Jonathan Brooks, who people keep talking about how he's gonna take Chuba's spot and all this other shit. It just doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. Bryce Young, his career was left to die from the start. And then with the Giants, I mean, they found something in Tyrone Tracy, I think. They have a pretty good receiving core, in my opinion. I think it's not the worst. Uh, Wandale Robinson, I think he's pretty decent. I think he's a good wide receiver, two wide receiver, three kind of guy. Darius Slayton, is whatever. Nothing hit home about. But Malik Neighbors can be. I envision a league where like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Malik Neighbors are going one, two, and three in passing yards, not or in receiving yards. Like that is very realistic, especially with the target share of like Malik Neighbors, but just gets them drops down. But uh I mean the Giants, I don't agree with that. I think the Giants have a better future. I just think you find a way to get Daniel Jones' money off the books. I'm sure some dumbass team, i.e. the Saints, will probably give you the fucking money to take him, uh, or to get rid of him. But get a new quarterback, improve the O line. I think their offense will start growing a little bit. I don't agree with that statement. I don't think they're in dire straits right now. It's just Daniel Jones is the Nazi Party reincarnated, the Ninth Reich, or the Third Reich. So
I guess
just
we
get rid
missed a
of
few
him.
Reichs in between, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. They both suck. Let's get to a game that people actually would care about, because let's be honest, nobody cares about this game? It's just two of the worst teams in the league. The one significance of it, I will say, is Giants fall to 2-8 while the Panthers move to 3-7. So that puts the Giants in pole position along with the Jaguars and Browns. Although I think the Browns are about to win against the Saints, but pole position for that number one pick. So good for them. On to an actual good game though, which you would be a surprising statement at the beginning of the year, but something we need to stop saying now because they're a real team. Both of them. Steelers come away with a 1-point victory over the Commanders in a game that was honestly just a hard fought game by both sides. I mean, the Jaden, probably had his toughest test of the season in this game going up against that Steelers defense. And meanwhile, the Steelers offense, even though they struggled, they were able to get the job done and go pick up a victory. They're now leading their division and have a chance, if they can pick up a win against the Ravens, to be in a really good position to win that division after they were completely written off to start the season. And even written off when they made the decision just to switch from Justin Fields to Russ.
You know, I think this is just a testament to Mike Tomlin. I mean, I don't think there's not many coaches in the league that will have the success that Mike Tomlin has, especially with the thing I respect about Mike Tomlin is he isn't afraid to make tough decisions because they were winning games. They had a winning record. They were like what 4-2, something like that, with Justin Fields. They were winning games, but it wasn't good enough for him. And he gave Russ a shot, which I'll even admit I thought, nah, Russ ain't going to do anything. But Russ just looks way better than Justin Fields, and that offense looks way better. Um, and Russell Wilson looks like he's revitalizing his career, and that's good to see. But man, I just gotta give it up to Mike Tomlin, man. He needs a round of applause. I mean, he's never had a losing season. He just always finds a way. I mean, the Steelers team is the definition of consistency. They will never just seems like they'll never fall off. Even when they should, they won't. And it just seems like he does a lot with the players that he has. And, shout out to Jane Daniels. I don't think Jane Daniels necessarily like failed, you know. Um his D line sold him with jumping off sides on that last drive. That was that like a supercell. Um, but I mean, he hung in there. There's going to be battles like that. There's going to be tough games like that in the NFL. I'm more interested to see how he responds next week. Um, but I'm not worried about Russell Wilson. He's an experienced guy, so I can see them going out next week and really putting pause on the Ravens. Um, Ravens defense, it's not that great in terms of pass defense. It's not good, and George Pickens seems to be the most menacing guy on the planet, and he's probably going to catch at least four just crazy ass balls, pause, from Russ all over the Ravens defense. Uh,
I mean, it's pretty easy to catch a lot of balls all over the Ravens defense with how bad they are. They could have used Lattimore, who I know he didn't play in this game, but good pickup for Washington. Definitely would have been a good pickup for the Ravens because their pass defense sucks. But I mean, I want to give some credit to Tomlin again with that move. I know this wasn't, if you look at the stats, like he had 3 touchdowns, but Russ was 14 for 28. Like the Steelers' offense looked very shaky during this game. They really, like throughout most of the game, they struggled. They didn't look like they were that good. And shout out the Commanders' defense with how they've really stepped up in the past weeks and have been really playing well. I think that's a testament to how well coached they are that they have. It's not the most talented unit, but they're bought in. And that's really a testament to good coaching because you get the team bought in, get the team playing your way, and you get guys playing at a higher level than what their talent might be. But the Steelers' offense, they struggled, but Russ was able to make some big plays when needed, especially when he hit that big touchdown pass to take the lead, where he was just retreating back, and it was just like a classic Russ play. He's retreating back, and then all of a sudden just throws a bomb for a touchdown, perfectly placed. That's what this offense can be with Russ versus with Justin Fields, and that's why they wanted him to start. So shout out to them for doing that, but also shout out to the Steelers defense. I mean, we all know how good they are, and I mean, there's not too much you can say about that, but they had a really good game plan coming into this game. They knew the scouting report on Washington. Jaden's a mobile quarterback who he's best not just when he's scrambling for positive yards, but scrambling around, rolling around, like getting out of the pocket and extending plays to find throws. So their game plan, keep him in the pocket, make sure that he has to step up in the pocket instead of being able to step out, and then force tight window throws. They were able to do that effectively, and he made some good throws, but he is 17 for 34, probably his roughest game of the year, and this was just a team that probably more talented on defense than Washington's offense is talented, as good as the combination of Jaden and Terry have been. It also probably hurt that Brian Robinson was out, although I'm not sure they would have been able to run the ball anyway, because Steelers, what they're doing was they're trying to force Washington to run a different offense. They're, like I said, making Jaden step up in the pocket instead of roll out. They were taking away the QB run game and just the run game in general because of how good their D-line was against a not really great running back room with Brian Robinson out. And they know that Cliff Kingsbury, he loves to run a lot of screens and do a lot of horizontal passing instead of vertical passing. So they took that away and were forcing them to go attack the middle of the field where they trusted their zone coverage. They trusted their guys to be in the right position, and more often than not they were. It's a really effective game plan, and I don't want to say that this is a recipe to beat the Commanders because a lot of this just came from how talented the Steelers defense that they're able to execute that, but they knew their opponent very well and were able to take away their strengths.
Who's their DC? Can't remember his name.
Shoot, let me go see. It is Terrell Austin, who is in his second season as their defensive coordinator.
Okay. Shout out to him. Shout out to him, man. Steelers have a scary defense sometimes, man. They really do.
They do. And I mean, for Washington, as much as this loss sucks, I mean, they're still in a great position with how they've been able to overachieve. And I think they actually are a pretty good team. They're kind of like the Texans last year, where it's a team that's definitely ahead of schedule. It's a bit of a different mold. Like, I think the Texans last year were definitely more talented, especially on defense. But the Commanders are maybe in the better position to where, I mean, the Eagles are looking better now, but all they have to do is hold off the Eagles, and they're in a very bad division, so they've got a pretty clear path. So it's interesting to see, and I think that it's just really a testament to how, I mean, Jaden's been great, obviously, and just how well this coaching staff has done, getting this team bought in, getting this team to overperform and believe that they can win these types of games. Like, they may have lost against the Steelers this week, but they just believe that they can win these types of games. And, I mean, just shout out to them. I'm very interested to see how this team is moving forward. The one other thing that I wanted to point out that I noticed when I was looking at the AFC North standings, I think it's really interesting the contrast between the Steelers and the rest. I'm going to say the rest of the division. I'm not counting Cleveland in that because they're not at all a contender in it. But the Steelers have only 215 points for versus 318 for the Ravens and 270 for the Bengals. But they're sitting there. They have played one less game, so that's going to affect these stats a bit. But even still, they're not going to get 100 points in that one game. And they're sitting at the top of the division because they've only allowed 146 points versus 253 from the Ravens, 262 from the Bengals. It's really interesting to seeing the contrast of how they are what you imagine in an AFC North team with how they've been over the years, having a dominating defense and that being the foundation. And that's such a contrast to the Ravens. And I mean, I know the Bengals aren't a contender for this division, but they're at least a team that they'll play twice. And it's just such a contrast between those two teams that are so heavily focused on offense that I think it's going to be a really interesting style matchup to where whose terms, more so when they play the Ravens, because again, even if the Bengals beat them, all they can do is play spoiler unless they get a lot of help. But it's going to be interesting to see whose terms these matchups are played on. Can the Steelers turn it into a defensive showdown, or are the Ravens able to turn it into a shootout, which would probably favor them, although their defense is scary in the wrong way? It's going to be interesting to see how that matchup goes.
When you say that, it just kind of reminds me of the old the old Saints teams drinking game, y'all. Y'all gonna get drunk again, fucking around with me. Uh, we used to go into this like, man, if the Saints make this a shootout, they're gonna win this damn game, and that would be the truth. um, I would point to the what was it 2015 Saints versus Giants. It was like
Oh, jeez.
where 7 touchdowns were thrown from Drew Brees and 6 were thrown by Eli Manning. Absolutely fucking insane game. One of my favorite games to watch. I still go back and watch it. The Cardinals game was also pretty good. It was basically the same thing. I think
You
Carson
know,
Palmer threw 5 TDs, something like that.
it's
Drew threw
funny
6.
because you say that's one of your favorite games. That was probably one of my least favorite games to watch, just because of how frustrating it was. That was a game that, with how we jumped out early, like Saints should have easily won that game, and that was like the offense played perfectly, but it was just that just showed how bad the defense was that the Saints had to get the ball last to win the game. Because if they didn't, the Giants would just march down and score and win. Like it's just that was just they won that game, but that was just the entire Drew Brees prime in a nutshell to where he had to play perfectly on offense because those defenses were so bad. So it's just
Oh
was
yeah,
a
man, that
shame
was
wasting that
Saints
career.
football to a T. That's why I say is one of my favorites. That was Saints football. That was the epitome of Saints football right there. Shootout, shootout, shootout. If the Saints were getting a shootout, I had the Saints 10 times out of 10. Oh yeah, we can't stop shit, but I know damn well y'all ain't gonna stop us. So what you saying? Will the Steelers kind of force them to play their matchup? I think the thing with the Steelers is the Steelers are a well coached and disciplined team, and it's hard to beat a team like that. They're not gonna make a lot of mistakes. Um, and the thing with them is they make games muddy. They make games dirty. They make the games physical. So, like for example, the Saints and Eagles game this year, that game was just way too fucking physical for the Saints. There was no way that, in my eyes, they should have lost the game, but we played right into the Eagles' strengths. Their O line is way better than our D line, and their D line is way better than the beat up ass O line that we had at the time. So fuck what anything else had going on. Fuck us having better receivers. Fuck them not having any receivers basically because Devontae Smith is leaving the game and AJ Brown didn't play. But it just played into them. Just played into that strength. They made the game muddy. They made it dirty. That's what they had to do, and they came out with a win. So Steelers, they're a tough team because that's what they do. I'd be hard pressed to find any game for the rest of the season where the Steelers are putting up more than like 24, 25, 26 points. Like it's gonna be defensive showdowns whoever they play, in my opinion. I don't see a world where they just give up a shit ton of points. Their offense isn't that damn good to even be doing that to keep up in a shootout. So um I think just them making it really muddy. Um but I don't really have anything else to say. We can keep it in division and talk about that crazy ass Bengals game. We talk about shootouts.
I mean, I think we have to get into that. I know it was, I mean, almost a week ago now with the Thursday game, but I mean, that game is that's what those two teams are. And I mean, I want to give a shout out to the Bengals, even though they lost, because that's honestly more competitive than, I mean, I won't say it's more competitive than I expected them to be because it was a divisional matchup. And we all know how those divisional matchups always go down, where they always end up being close, especially if it's on a Thursday. But they kept it close, and I mean, that just, if you want to go back to the drinking game, that just reminded me of what we talked about with the Saints teams, where, I mean, the offense played really well. Burrow had an excellent game, and it didn't matter because their defense was so bad that they ended into a position where, I mean, they actually could have won it if they converted that 2-point conversion, which I think was the right decision to go for it. I complete.
What? Dave's not shitting on Zach Taylor. I'm will in a
Well,
second when you're done. Don't worry.
hold on, because I think it was the right decision to go for it because their defense could not buy a stop, and if the Ravens won the toss in overtime, they were going to win the game. I think the play call was absolutely terrible. Like, it basically just gave Burrow one read on that play, and when he wasn't able to convert that throw, then that was it. I, Like, you took the whole backside of the play just out of his look, and you really just had a contested ball to a backup player, which, I mean, I guess kind of you could argue a co-starter, but still, not really a good play call. I don't really get it, but, I mean, sure. They kept it close. They're 4-6. They might actually somehow make the playoffs just because there's 3 wildcard teams now, and the AFC kind of sucks, but they won't deserve it. And, I mean, shout out to Jamar Chase for going absolutely nuclear. Shout out to Burrow for having a 400-yard passing game, which we thought was dead this season. But at the end of the day, their defense absolutely sucks. They're going to be hard-pressed to improve it because of how they've built their team. Now that they are spending all this money, the window's closing. This is a big thing that we're going to get into more later, but a big part of roster construction is knowing when your championship window is and timing out paying guys then. Because once you have to pay your quarterback, that starts the ticking time bomb. And then if you pay other positions, it all becomes about how it's structured. You see it with the Lions they gave that big contract to Jared Goff. They gave Amon-Ra that extension. Those kick in against the cap in 2026. So basically what they said is they think that they can win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, and they want to be able to have the flexibility to go all-in spending. But eventually, like, since Goff has been playing well, he was going to have to be paid. Once that kicks in, they get into the mode where there's less flexibility, and they have to start kicking things down the road if they want to make any big moves. The Bengals right now should be in that contending window, and they're completely wasting it. They're not going to have the flexibility to go build up their defense like they want to. And, I mean, it's a shame to see because there's so much exciting talent on this team. Just so many, like, look at what Burrow and Chase did. And this was without T. Higgins even being healthy. Like, I know it's against the terrible Ravens pass defense, but this is just what this offense could be. And it's a shame that we're kind of seeing it get wasted away by a terrible defense and a terrible head coach. But for the Ravens, on the flip side, I think that this is also just indicative of where they're at. They are a really good offense, and Derrick Henry was actually kind of taken away in this game. He only had 16 carries for 68 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. Passing game, though, was firing, but this is kind of where the Ravens are at. They're almost a better Bengals team. Like, they have a better head coach, and they just have better team overall, but their secondary is still so bad that it'll turn games into shootouts that shouldn't be shootouts. So they need to figure something out there, and now that the trade deadline's passed, their options are a bit more limited. I mean, I know they brought in Trey White, but it's going to be interesting to see because I know we had been talking earlier, like debating whether or not the Ravens are a contender, like a top-tier contender. We kind of went back and forth. Like when we made that original tier list, it was still early in the season, so we put them one notch below since we were being stingy with who we gave contender to. Then they go on a run and look like, yes, they are at that level, but then they kind of fall back a bit. I think they've got to have the game played on their terms, just like we were talking about them earlier, matching up against the Steelers. And they have to be able to control the game and not let it just be a shootout, but let it be a game where Derrick Henry's able to run the ball and Todd Monken doesn't try and get too creative and try and get into too much passing, because when it turns into a shootout, it becomes dangerous for them with that secondary.
So I'm a throw some stuff out here. It's a couple things on both sides. So I just want to say, Jamar Chase. I mean, this motherfucker does this every fucking year. He will have a game where he goes nuclear. He's good for about one or two a year. Last year, I traded for him in fantasy, and that week that I traded for him, he dropped 55 points or 52. I think it was 52. And I have in the NFL league, I've been running that league for a couple of years. I think like 4 or 5 years. It in the league history, it shows what player has scored the most points in that season. Jamar Chase has three of them in these last like 4 or 5 years. So he's good for that. One time a year at least. You can book it. So shout out to him for doing that. Yes, it's against a she Ravens even. So I'm actually jump to the Ravens real quick because I'm confused on uh on that secondary. You have Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith is there in the back end. You have Marcus Williams, and your secondary is one of the worst, if not the worst. I believe they give up the most passing yards to receivers in the league, and that's confusing to me. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? They did lose their D coordinator, I believe, right? To the Chargers. What was that?
Um, no, they lost him to the Seahawks.
Yeah. Okay. So they lost their DC, and I'm sitting here thinking this is basically the same. I mean, they don't have Patrick Queen anymore, but people are arguing that Patrick Queen wasn't, their pinnacle of success anyway. But it's just about the same secondary. I want to say for the most part. You like I said, you Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams. You have Roquan Smith. These are great players. These are great players. Um, and they're just bad. They're leaving guys open. And this is a question that I posed on Twitter after the game. I said, okay, as a defense coordinator, if you put yourself in the shoes, actually, I'm gonna ask this question after. Just I'm gonna bring it back because I want to hear your thoughts on it, your perspective. But jumping back to the Bengals are a crazy team because it's like you said, right? They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of explosive talent. But the thing is, their defense is so goddamn cooked, and it's like what you've said for the past couple weeks. They just had this trickle down effect where every single year they're losing a big piece of their defense every single year, one every year, and to the point where we're here. And it, what else is there for you to do? And like I said, you still have to pay Jamar Chase. They've already paid Burrow. They have to pay T. Higgins. I mean, they're probably gonna have to get rid of him. They got rid of Joe Mixon already. I mean, Trey Hendrickson's there. I mean, there's just too many great players. And I think maybe the Bengals might be one of those first teams that we talked about early in the year when paying your quarterback all that money. I'm not saying this is explicitly Joe Burrow's fault because he got paid like what last year, 2 years ago. So, but the point is, when we talked about in an earlier podcast this year of how paying the quarterbacks and paying a wide receiver one all this money is going to just implode teams at a very quick rate, and it's going to really constrict teams heavily into doing anything worthwhile in team building. And I think the Bengals are going to be the first team to really display that because they were kind of ahead of the curve in that regard. Because I mean, we seen the Chiefs, right? They didn't strap themselves to Tyreek Hill; they got him out of there. So shout out to them. I mean, great ran organization. Um, but if you just want to look at it, the Bengals have the NFL leader in passing yards, passing touchdowns, total receptions, total receiving yards, total receiving touchdowns, and total sacks. Just put that in perspective. They're 4-6, but they have the leader in yards, the passing yards, passing TDs, receptions, receiving yards, receiving TDs, and sacks. That is nuts. That's absurd. And you can attribute that to Zach Taylor, but you can also attribute that to, yes, they are really strong in those areas, but because they have to pay those guys, they don't. have anything else around them. So yeah, they could be the best at those positions. Which also shout out to the Saints for letting go of Trey Henderson. That shit's still biting us to the fucking end of time. Fucking guys leading the fucking league in sacks. 3, 4 years later after that bullshit. So it's just one of those things where they're gonna have to make sacrifices somewhere. They're probably gonna pay Jamar Chase. T. Higgins realistically won't be there next year. He's already asked for a trade. They fucking franchise tagged him,
I
I
mean,
believe,
he
twice already.
he also shouldn't be there next year. It sucks because he's a great player and he does a lot for their offense with just having his profile able to be paired with Chase's profile. It just complements so well. But I mean, you're already paying Burrow. You're already paying Chase, paying Higgins too. Like, where else is the money gonna go? It's like we talk about. It's bad. Like, if you pay your quarterback, you have to be able to get bargains elsewhere. Like, that is the. I get that you want to keep your talent, but that would be the opposite of the model that you need to be successful.
And right. I mean, I'm looking at it, from the rest of the team's perspective. I mean, I couldn't really tell you who a lot of the other guys are. I mean, yeah, they picked up Chase Brown. That's working out for him. But maybe you can argue that really any back could kind of work in the system. It's not a running system. So, he's not. You probably put Devin Singletary there. He probably have the same year as Chase Brown. Maybe. Um,
Well,
but
all right. For reference, Calvin is, even whether or not he's right, Calvin is a Chase Brown hater. So I just want to put that out
I'm
there.
I'm not a Chase Brown hater. I'm just a Zach Moss apologist. That's what I am. Um, I like Chase Brown. I do. But because Zach Moss was one of my running backs on the fantasy team, I was hoping that he came out on top of the battle. He didn't, and he like broke his fucking neck. So, you know what? Congrats. Everyone with Chase Brown, you include Dave, congrats. Y'all got the dub in that. I'll take the L. And then all of the people that I convinced to get Zach Moss, we took the L. But don't worry, I'll come back with some heat next year or whatever. Trust. Um, well, then flipping back to the Ravens, this was the question that I wanted to pose, uh, and that was, which also just real quick, uh, MVP type games from both guys, and Joe Burrow is getting the absolute full fucking experience of a Drew Brees prime, isn't he? A fucking shitty defense and him throwing 400 fucking 50 yards, no interceptions, 4 TDs, and still losing the game. I mean, man, he also wears number 9, just like him. He is getting just
Well, he even
2,000.
idolized Drew Brees, like, growing up. Be careful what you wish for, because he's getting the
Yeah,
full
be careful what
experience.
you wish for. Because here you are with your Marcus Colston. You're putting up crazy numbers every week. You're not turning the ball over. And you score 34 points in an NFL game and you fucking lose. And I will quickly say Zach Taylor is a dickhead for not kicking the field goal. It was going to be a 53-yarder. I understand that ain't the easiest, but Evan McPherson is a capable kicker who should and could make it. And instead of kicking the field goal to go up by 4 points, they decided to go for it. Not only did they decide to go for it, it was 3rd and 2. They threw a deep shot on 3rd and 2, incomplete. And then on 4th and 2, they threw another deep shot, incomplete. And I didn't understand that. If you're gonna go for it, maybe let's run the ball here, get maybe a couple yards. At worst, we lose like 1 or 2. We're still gonna throw the ball. We'll be all right. Um, it's like what you said in the end zone. I mean, you're only getting really one target right here, Jamar Chase. I mean, they know that. So, I mean, I don't like that. I don't like the play call. I don't like the
Well, the
decision
play wasn't
because
even designed to Jamar Chase either on the 2 point play. I believe it was Tanner Hudson who they're looking to. And
yeah,
basically, it was just, I mean, I know there's a bit of pressure and stuff, but they were just having a contested ball thrown to him. Yes, you could have argued that maybe there should have been a roughing the passer penalty, but that didn't affect the play. That just was like it was something that probably should have been called, but it didn't affect the fact that the play call was still get the ball to Tanner Hudson here in a contested window, and you don't really have another read that you can look to, so you kind of had to force it there. Going for 2, like good decision because your defense is that bad. Which I mean, that in of itself is a problem when you're able to say that. Yeah, the defense is so bad that we have to go for two because we don't think we can stop them. That's a red flag about the team in the first place. But you wasted the play call there. You wasted, like you said, that field goal. I mean, look, it's just decisions like that. This wasn't even Zach Taylor's worst game. I mean, the field goal decision, definitely. The play call, definitely. But overall, like, this is just a team that you talked about. All this talent, how they're leading the league, and all these stats, how they've just got, like, all these players that you think, if you see all this, this is a contender. Instead, they're hoping to be a wild card team. And, I mean, it's sad to see talent like that get wasted.
And these are, like I'm with you. I remember I texted you after the 2-point conversion call, and look, my dad, he called me too. He's one of those guys where he's like, you take the points by any means necessary, and he's not really a big guy on going for two. I'm a risky motherfucker, and I do like going for two. I do. Um, I did feel like at that point it was kind of 50-50 in honesty for me whether or not to go for two or not, because I felt like whoever would have gotten the ball in OT would have won the game. So I mean, you put down 50-50, I mean, whatever. But um
I mean, basically, what you're saying there is that you believe you have a greater than 50% chance to make that 2 point conversion.
yeah. And did I think they did? I honestly don't think they did. At least not with that play call. Um, but my thing with that is they fucked up with not kicking the field goal. This is the thing that I was pissed off with Dennis Allen for in a bunch of these games where you would go ultra aggressive in the wrong spot. Like you're up. You don't need to go for a fourth down and you're up. Yeah, you're only up by one, but you make this a two possess not two possess, but you make this a game where they have to score a touchdown to get in the lead if you kick a field goal. So they go for 'em 4th down, they don't get it. It's what, 21-20, something like that. They kick a field goal, they're winning the game. You know what I'm saying? So if they kick a field goal and you kick the field goal yourself, you're still up. So I thought that was stupid. And then also you want to look at it from this perspective, you kick that field goal, they go in to score that touchdown, they win the game. You don't have to worry about going for two. That extra 3 points, you would win the game. So that's where I get on Zach Taylor's ass. But now it's time for me to get on the defensive coordinator's ass for the for the Ravens. And this is the question I posed on Twitter, which is what I'm about to ask you. Um, I know what I would say, but I'm gonna leave this up to you. So the question I asked was, as a defensive coordinator, matter of fact, let me pull it up because I don't want to fuck myself up here. Um, but it was a pretty good question, I think. Um, Let me see if I can find it like this. Okay. So it was, as an NFL defensive coordinator, if a wide receiver has a game like Jamar Chase did, is it that damn, I fucked that up. Is it that receiver is just that much better than your DBs? Or are you not even trying to stop him by doubling or tripling him? I think that's a pretty good question. I mean, when a guy has 11 catches, 200 and fucking 50 yards and 3 touchdowns, I mean, at what point does it become your fucking fault? Like, Jamar Chase is an elite level receiver, yes, but I'd be very hard pressed to believe that in the NFL, the I mean, you say what you want, all NFL DBs are good. They're there for a reason. And yes, you can say all NFL receivers are good. They're there for a reason. But and obviously, yes, we know there's tiers to these guys, whatever. But that's not the point. The point is Jamar Chase just that much better than your entire defensive back group? Like, are they busting in coverages? Are they just being undisciplined with their eyes, with their hands, with their footwork? Is it you just calling stupid shit and not bracket covering the guy, doubling him, tripling him, whatever the fuck the case may be? Because pretty sure I seen late in the game where he had well over 200 yards and 2 tutties. I'm looking at one side of the field, Jamar Chase is by himself, and he's in man fucking coverage. I'm like, "What? What are we doing?" I understand and believe in your guys, but this fucking guy has over 200 yards. Fuck man coverage at this point, putting 2, 3 guys on him. It's like that meme with the Saints and Calvin Johnson. These motherfuckers put 2 guys on him at the line of scrimmage and pressed him. 2. So I'm sitting here like, at what point as a defense coordinator do you take responsibility? And at what point as a DB does it no longer be your fault, or is it all your fault? See what I'm saying? So I'm asking you that question, Dave.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit difficult to say because you really need to go look back at the film and see how often was it busted coverages and that. But at the same time, look at the personnel. It's like for any Pelicans fans out there, what does Antonio Daniels always say? KYP, know your personnel. T. Higgins is out. The Bengals receiving core outside of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is pretty questionable. You don't really have any guys who are really the standout threat that you'd say, hey, this is somebody that we need to watch out for and game plan for. Sure, somebody might beat you. They might be able to, I would say be able to scheme someone open, but they don't do that because all their routes are all isolated routes and most of it's outside the number stuff. It's really an ineffective scheme, but I mean, we've gotten into that enough. But either way, sure, you might get beat by a guy, but you don't really have anyone that you're saying, hey, we're really scared of that guy. Maybe they're tight ends a little bit, which not just talent-wise, but that's just something that they've been saying because their receivers are so thin that they've been running a lot of 2 tight end sets recently, getting Gesicki and Hudson on the field. So that's a little wrinkle you have to be aware of. But other than that, T. Higgins is out. Jamar Chase really is the only threat that you have to be that worried about on that offense. I'm not trying to take away from those other guys, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you got to be keyed in on Jamar Chase and say, okay, if Mike Gesicki is going to be the guy that beats us because we're bracketing Chase, so be it. If Andre Yoshivas is going to beat us because we're bracketing Jamar Chase, so be it. We're going to take away Jamar Chase because they don't have T. Higgins out there. If T. Higgins was out there, it's a different story, and that's a lot of the appeal of why the Bengals love having them. But they need to find a new T. Higgins in the draft that's cheaper, or just another receiver because they can't afford it. But when he's out, it's the Jamar Chase show. He should be bracketed every play, and you just live with the result of that play. If someone else beats you, oh well, we're not going to let the number one guy beat you. It's kind of similar to what the Patriots would do during their peak years. Belichick was always keyed in on taking away the number one option. So much so that, like, number one options were terrible against the Patriots in fantasy because you knew that their entire game plan would be, we want to take away this guy and let someone else beat you. Like, one of the things that they would actually do that's kind of interesting would be lots of times they would put their number one corner on the number 2 receiver and have him on an island and then bracket the number 1 receiver with 2 guys and say, look, we're going to dedicate these 2 guys and we're going to trust our other guy on an island. I don't even think that's something that you necessarily would have needed to do against the Bengals in this game with how their receiver room was, but either way, you have to take away the number 1 option. Like, it should be a simple thing when you think about it. Like, obviously, we should take away the number 1 option. Why would we do anything else? But, I mean, I watched that game, and I can tell you I wasn't watching it closely enough to pay attention to what kind of defense the Ravens were in every possession, every play against Jamar, but there were too many times where he was, unless he was just so good at beating the bracket coverage, where he was just ending up against one singular guy and being able to make the play. And I think that is a bit of a testament to a poor game plan. They didn't know their personnel. They didn't realize that what they needed to do. And I mean, Jamar Chase is such a great receiver, but you've seen in games this season where he's been kind of quiet because even with T. Higgins out there on the field, he would get bracketed and they would force Burrow to go to other options, which was a lot easier to do when Higgins is out there. And now that he's not out there, I don't get why you're not putting more of an emphasis on taking him away. But at the same time, what do we really expect from the 32nd ranked pass defense in the league? Obviously, the corners aren't the strongest, but a bigger thing is the defensive coordinator's not getting the job done because, like you said, the team was pretty similar. Like they've lost some pieces, but it was a pretty similar defense last year, and it was much better with McDonald there as their DC. So it honestly might be time for them if they really want to be a contender. You hate doing this in a guy's first year, but you might want to at least consider pulling the trigger and making a change. At least change who calls the defensive plays, but I don't know. It's something that they need to be addressed if they want to truly be able to contend. But I mean, we'll see how things develop. I just think that it was a bad approach that they took in this game, but it's also a bad defense. So, what do you expect?
Hey man, I think the biggest problem, I always like to say it. I'm a little facetious when I say it. When I be like, coaching and being a GM in the NFL can't be that damn difficult. Obviously it is, you know, but what I mean by that is I feel like, and look, hindsight's 2020, but I just feel like a lot of the shit that I see from coaching decision perspectives, personnel decision perspective, who to pay, who not to pay, who they draft, who they didn't draft perspective. I just feel like a lot of those decisions are just dog shit from guys who are paid big bucks to make these decisions. Um, because I'm sitting here like, man, if I was defensive coordinator, I just don't see a way in hell if it just ain't my cornerbacks are just that dog shit. And you can't tell me my cornerbacks are that dog shit when I have Marlon Humphrey and I have Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams at safety. You're not going to sit here and tell me that my defense, my secondary is the worst in the league with just those names there. And do I think Marcus Williams took a step back? Maybe. I don't even think it's necessarily a step back. It's just he doesn't have to do as much. Um, but I don't believe that. And like with McDonald there, it was much better. And I mean, if I'm DC, I'm like, look, this fucking guy here has because I like I said, I seen man already had over 200 yards, and I'm looking at single coverage, man coverage on an island with Jamar Chase. I'm sitting here calling a timeout, screaming, throwing the clipboard down like hell no, hell no, hell no, hell no. Somebody else, anyone, D lineman, fuck y'all not getting sacks anyway. Go fucking help. Go help press this motherfucker at the line. Anything. I'm not letting a guy get 200 yards on me, let alone 250. I don't want a guy to get 100. That's a little tougher, but I mean, that's just so to me, I believe that's poor on the defense coordinator because I just don't believe that there is a world where the players are repeatedly NFL players who have been together. This isn't a new cornerback core. They this unit has been together for the most part. I just don't believe that they're that terrible from an individual player perspective to allow that to happen. So to me, that's a DC thing. And that's where I bring up, oh, coaching is easy. Cause that's just brain dead, simple, basic shit. Like, hey, dude has 200 yards. Hey, we're gonna just double, triple. We're gonna do anything we can. And it's like you said, know your personnel. This guy. It's like the Saints. The Saints lost to Dallas Goddard, but god damn it, they said Devontae Smith ain't gonna fucking beat him. Devontae Smith is the biggest threat they had outside of Saquon. But they said to hell with that. We're not letting Devontae Smith beat us, and they didn't. And you know what? Fair is fair, and it's like in the NBA. If I'm sitting here and I'm trying to guard up on Jokic and say, "Look, we're gonna triple Jokic's ass," Jokic ain't gonna beat us. But Jamal Murray cracks off for 45 points. I gotta live with that, and I'm okay with that because that was the game plan. You know what? Your second best option, your third best option, he cooked us. All right, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm put down to DC. I just feel like there's just too many stupid. I feel like analytics and statistics have kind of brain rotted decision making a little bit in the NFL, and they're not really seeing ball for ball because football is football. I like saying that football is football. And I just feel like at that point, you're looking at a fucking stat sheet. You're looking at, okay, well, based on analytics, the percentages of this to work, I'm gonna keep single coverage because they're no, like, dog, he's the only motherfucker here. Guard him up. I don't believe Yosevaz. I don't believe Chase Brown. I don't fucking believe Tyler Hudson. I don't fucking believe Mike Gesicki is going to beat your ass. I don't believe it. And obviously, they still got the win. Um, it is what it is. The secondary made a big play when it really mattered. But at the end of the day, that shit can't happen. Um, and I'm with you. I mean, I'm going into this as a gym like, hey, look, we gonna have to talk about this. Like, we're gonna make some personnel decisions, and I'm a little bit on the side of if someone is doing shitty, I don't really like the whole, "Oh, just keep being patient, be patient." I mean, I get it. First year, they need a while for the system to be implemented, but too many times there are guys who in their first year, they hit the ground running. And that tells me that's just great, just better coaching. So if you're sitting here struggling this much as a DC in your first year and you got me going from to me, there's no point in keeping a guy if we went from middle of the pack to kind of, around that, upper half of the league to dead fucking last in a stat, and we virtually have the same team. No, I don't need you here. There's no point. That I don't need to be patient or wait for you to make something happen because this team shouldn't be in this predicament anyway. If I'm making sense in that regard. So yeah, I believe that it's tough. Some GMs are like Mickey Loomis, where we're gonna give this guy fucking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to figure it out. And then there's some guys, some ownerships like David Tepper. They're like, fuck that. You don't be good in the first year. Get the fuck out. Well, that's different because their team sucks ass. But if you have a decent team that can win and you're not good and you regress from a coaching spread because your coaches left to go to other places and get bigger opportunities, and you regress with the new coaches, oh yeah, 100%. Get those fucking coaches out of here. I mean, I don't need it. I don't need them. No. So I'm putting this on DC. Um, I've been rambling about that. What's the next game we got, man?
I mean, I think we got to get into that Sunday night game just for the absolute chaos that it was. I mean, you talk about bad football. I mean, there's your game right there. The Lions are able to come away with the win despite Jared Goff throwing 5 picks. And I mean, I know one of those don't really count because it was a Hail Mary at the end of the half. So it's not like he turned the ball over because the half just ended right there. But Jared Goff, 5 picks. CJ Stroud, 2 picks. Just interceptions galore. The offenses
Did he have
really couldn't
two
get
fumbles
going.
as well, or one, or two fumbles, or one fumble?
He had
See,
1 fumble, and it was recovered by his teammate because his offensive lineman, Titus Howard, decided, I just want a strip sack right here. I mean, what was the deal with that? Did you see that play?
I did. I just think it's a situation where, you know what, man? Look, the lights are a little bright in here. Um, the ball. Look, every lineman, they we're not supposed to be touching the ball. If a lineman is touching the ball, we get excited. We're like, oh shit. So he probably is sitting there trying to keep CJ up, but he felt the ball in his hand. He was like, this ball is kind of loose. I might be able to take this bitch and do something with it. Help out CJ because he's going down anyway. I'm gonna pick up a couple yards. Well, he was immediately reminded that he is fat and that he is a lineman, an offensive lineman. And that ball came out. So that's I mean, that shit can't happen, but it is funny. That is like butt fumble. I wouldn't say it's butt fumble levels of funny, but it is in that butt fumble range. And I will say, man, Joe Burrow, like I said, man, he's getting the fucking full Drew Brees experience. Life is not fucking fair when you're getting the Drew Brees treatment because that motherfucker threw for 450 yards and 4 TDs and no interceptions and lost a fucking football game. And Jared Goff can come out here and throw 5 interceptions and still win a game. Life ain't fair. I know it ain't, Joe. Trust. You better ask Drew Brees. You might if I was Joe Burrow, I would have called Drew Brees that night. I would have found a way. Give me his number, anybody, because he's the only QB in the world that will fucking know how I'm feeling right now. Um, so you know what? Shout out to Jared Goff. for being the absolute opposite of Drew Brees, throw 5 interceptions, still win the game. Joe Burrow have a damn near perfect game, still lose. NFL God said, "Fuck you," flipped you off and everything, just like how they did Drew Brees all them years. It's real unfair, man. It's real unfair. But I will say, you said that's bad football. I kind of have a fucked up mind for football. I actually love watching games like that. I love watching games that are so shit that they're good,
Oh, it
if
was
that makes sense.
certainly entertaining.
It's so entertaining. Cause now I'm sitting here like, ooh, see, now we're reaching, like Ryan Fitzpatrick said, he was like, we are reaching my amount of interceptions on a Sunday night level. This is bad. I believe he had like what 7 interceptions on a Sunday night before, some of outrageous shit like that. But I'm looking at this like, shit, 5 interceptions? Fuck, let's keep it going. Let's see how many more he can get. I think that shit is interesting. I love it. Turnovers, turnovers, turnovers for two teams I don't root for that I like. I like both of those teams. This is a great game for me, regardless. And it's not boring because fuck, you turn the ball over. It's not like, they're just getting stonewalled. They're just stonewalling each other over and over and over and over again. It's a fucking 9-3 game. No. Nobody likes watching that shit unless you're Bill Belichick. But this is you talk about how the tush push for, buddy. This is football. God damn it. We're gonna turn this bitch over. And we gonna have a fucking war. I mean, that was a damn war. And I'm a fan of that. I like wars in football. I really do.
It
And I
was.
also like seeing some quarterbacks just fucking fumble and throw picks and just I love seeing it. As long as it ain't my quarterback. It's just something. It's like a damn train wreck, man.
What
It's
a
bad, but you
hey,
can't look away.
what a shocker! The defensive lineman love that. The defensive lineman love seeing quarterbacks struggle. Who would have thought?
Yeah, crazy how that works, huh? Yeah, I love watching QB struggle and uh but I mean fuck. This is a Dan Campbell coach team. I mean, that was probably the most Dan Campbell like game in terms of that was grit. That is the definition of grit. I mean, fuck, 5 turnovers, but who gives a fuck? We're just gonna keep our nose to the grindstone. We're gonna keep grinding this damn thing out. We're gonna go get some turnovers on our own, and we're gonna go try to win this damn game. I mean, there's not many times where you win the turnover battle by that margin and lose the game. There's not many times where as a defense you get 5 interceptions and you lose the game. And if I'm the Texans, I'm really frustrated. And to your point earlier about Jaden Daniels, and I think that's just a testament of how drafting a good quarterback can really put you ahead of schedule, like you said earlier. But this is kind of a sophomore slump for CJ Stroud, unfortunately, and I hate seeing it happen to him. And I mean, I'm just not seeing the same. I get it, his offensive line's dog shit, but he's missing throws. He looks a tad bit behind in his reads sometimes.
And
I
I
would
think he's a
really
little
like.
bit too quick to bail out of the pocket because a lot of his strength does lie in him being able to improvise, him rolling out and then being on the move and finding the throw. But I think he does it a little bit too early sometimes, and a lot of it's caused by that line being so bad. It's kind of like giving him, like, you know what, I don't want to get sacked, so I'm just going to go. But if he just hung in there a little bit and let things develop a little bit more before he turned it into a scramble drill, it probably would benefit that offense. I don't know though. Just something that I've kind of taken away from watching them the last few weeks.
I still believe in CJ Stroud.
Oh,
I do.
100%.
I don't think if you're a Texas fan, you should really be worried. I mean, he's a young guy, and it's like Dave said earlier. You're ahead of fucking schedule. To me, their success either should have started this year or next year. Same for the Commanders. That Commanders team has no fucking business being as good as they are, and they are because they're quarterback, and it revitalizes the team. It's the good quarterback boost. Now next year they probably will fall a little bit, but still be good. I mean, the Texans are still a good team to me. Obviously they're not in contender category. Obviously, I don't know if you can even really put them in elite category anymore. I think they're just probably in the upper tier of good, like really good, above average. Um, But I think this is just more of an indictment on how good the damn Lions are
It
when
is, and
they're winning games like this. You win ugly, but it's like you said earlier, man.
it's a
A
win.
win's a win.
That it would be the perfect transition to the Chiefs game, but I do want to get into the Texans first because, first of all, I do want to shout out their defense. The Texans defense, they played well. I mean, they're a good defense, and they did a really great job of putting Goff under pressure. And they also did a really great job of shutting down the run game. Jameer Gibbs had 71 yards, but only averaged 3.7 per carry. Montgomery had 32 yards and averaged only 2.7 per carry, although he did look good towards the end of the game when I think the defense was getting a little bit worn down. They put him in as kind of the battering ram, and they kind of wore them down with him, and he gave them a bit of a spark. So that's just a testament to how the Lions have built their team to where you can bring in a guy like Montgomery and have him be fresh because he's splitting the workload with Gibbs and be able to just wear down the defense. But, I mean, still, they shut down the run game, and they did a really good job of getting pressure on Goff. And Goff this season has been a lot better against the blitz and a lot better against pressure. But the Texans were able to get pressure even when they only brought 4. And that was huge because Goff kind of went into a bit of that panic mode that you'd see a lot more earlier in his career, where the pressure came and he didn't really know how to handle it, or he just wasn't able to find his outlets. And that's where some of the picks came. That's where him only completing 50% of his passes came. This is a good defense, and I mean, this is, if you like line play, this is one of the best matchups you'll see because everyone knows how good the Lions' offensive line is with how much all the media loves to talk about it every time anything about the Lions are brought up, which, I mean, it's fair. They built a great offensive line. The Texans have a really great defensive line, and those two lines butted heads. And honestly, I think the Texans' defensive line came out on top because they were able to shut
Today's
down the run
Sewell
game.
got his ass beat like a fucking drum
Did. And
by D'Amico Audrey. That's nuts.
I will say they didn't get any sacks, but they were winning because you don't have to get sacks to win, as you can see from this game. They got to Goff, and he was having to get rid of the ball quickly, throwing balls in the dirt quickly because he's not a very mobile quarterback. So if you get pressure on him, he's not going to evade it. So he was darting balls, he was throwing picks, he was 15 for 30. It's a good performance by the defense. But then you flip it around to the offense. And I mean, they actually did start off a little bit hot. They had 23 points in the first half and honestly looked pretty good. I mean, a lot of it was helped by them being set up on short fields, but offense looked like, all right, maybe they found a little something. They're getting Joe Mixon involved in the receiving game on a big reception. They were spreading the ball around a little bit. Mechie ended up being their lead receiver. Like, he had himself a little bit of a game, but it looked like, all right, we're doing a little something. But then the second half, Lions definitely made some adjustments, definitely shut them down, and the Texans kind of showed where their offense is at for the season, where it's just not that good. I mean, when you look at their run game, it's non-existent. Joe Mixon, and this is what I've been saying, like, he's been good this season, and he's able to pop off some big gains, but if he's not able to break a big gain, his yards per carry is terrible because the O-line can't get him any holes. 25 carries, 46 yards. That's 1.8 yards per carry. He had a long of 8. A long run, he was bottled up, didn't get any long runs, and because of that, every other run is inefficient. And I think that is one of the key things with this Texans offense. It is very inefficient, and they set themselves up in a lot of long down and distances, which will make it so they have to force a play to be able to get it. And that's where you kind of see some of the interceptions. You see a lot of the incompletions that Stroud has had. And I know that this is a very tough defense to match up against, but the inefficiency and not being able to get gains on first down and second down, that sets them behind. And I think they really need to just find some more creativity on offense. They have a bad offensive line, but you need to find ways to get yards on first down to shorten the sticks instead of having to make these long plays every third down. And that's something that maybe you need to get a little bit of a quick game going instead of just having CJ Stroud be an improviser, which I know he's so good at, but maybe don't run it on first down as often. Maybe like try and find some quick game. I don't know what the solution is, and I know this is a tough defense to play against, but you had something working in the first half, and then it's shut down in the second half. You need to be able to have that when the defense adjusts, have that counter adjustment, and just be able to find something. And I just think it's tough to do for this team where they're kind of like the Bears. And I hate making this comparison because CJ Stroud is a much better quarterback than Caleb Williams is, at least right now. And especially when the receivers are healthy, but even when not, the Texans are a much better team, but their offenses kind of look eerily similar right now to where the offensive lines are both terrible, and it's holding back their quarterbacks, and it's holding back their run game. I know DeAndre Swift has been able to make some big plays, as has Mixon, but when you look at it as a whole, yes, there'll be those explosive plays, and you always have to give credit for them because the fact that they happened is a good thing. But despite that, when the overall volume, you might have one big 50-yard gain, but every other gain you're averaging 2 yards. It means you're setting yourself up behind the sticks and you're making it harder on your offense. And there's not really much creativity. They're just not really able to get much going. The offense just seems kind of like it's pretty vanilla. You know what you're going to get with it. And I think Nico Collins being back will help a ton because he is just so good and he fits that offense so well. But they gotta figure some stuff out because this is a team, like you said, you can't really put that in the elite tier like everyone wanted to before the season. And I think that this was one of the things that we said coming into the season. The hardest thing to do is to be a good team consistently. You can. It's not that hard to overachieve in the league because when there's no pressure and there's no expectations and there's limited film on you, you're able to go out and just surprise teams. You're able to go out and just go fight and grit your way to victories. Once you become a team like this in the second year, while you see sophomore slumps a lot, there's now film on the guy. There's now film on the offense. DCs know how to adjust. And at the same time, you have a young team that's having to deal with being a good team now with expectations instead of just being able to be that hungry team that goes for the upset. And I know a well-coached team can overcome that, and I think D'Amico Ryans is a great coach, but it's still a difficult thing to do, especially now that they have some film on CJ. They know what he wants to do as an improviser, and they know that the run game is non-existent, so they're able to force the Texans into long downs and distances, and that's never a recipe for success. So, offense, got to show something. Got to find some way to turn things around. You know what your limitations are. You got to scheme something up that's able to do the best that you can with that. And that's going to be the barometer. Next week, or this week, I guess we could say, Nico Collins is supposed to be back, I believe. With him back especially, can you come up with something to get this offense firing? Because they really haven't been. I mean, when you look at their recent schedule, they put up 19 against the Bears, 7 against the Vikings, 24 against the Jaguars, 23 against the Bills, 41 against the Patriots, then 22 against the Packers, 23 against the Colts, 21 against the Jets, 23 against the Lions. Like after that week 1 game where they played the Colts and dropped 29, besides that one Patriots game where the Patriots just sucked, they haven't really shown any explosiveness, and they've just kind of been a like middle tier point scoring offense. So, got to come up with something. Defense is great, and they will keep you in games. Let's just see if the offense can get anything going.
I think they'll be all right. I mean, obviously losing Stephon Diggs, I mean that's big. Um, Nico Collins coming back is pretty huge. Obviously he didn't play last week, but like I said, man, I still believe. I do. I just feel like this is just growing pains. I think this is the growing pains that really like Caleb Williams should be experiencing right now. Caleb Williams is just getting like killed. That's not even like pain. It's just murder and death. But it's just growing pains, man. It's like you said, you need to find a way to be more creative, and they have potential there. It's just I don't know. Do you get a new OC? Do you just try to change things? I don't know, but it was a good game in terms of enjoyment from a defensive lineman. Um, and you know what? The Lions are legit. I mean, I think we knew that, but it's good to see a perennial bad team finally be good and like for real good. You know, uh, I think football is better that way.
It is, and I mean, shout out maybe the greatest trade of all time, and Stafford trade.
Rams
And
get a Super Bowl and Lions get a good, consistent QB that fits perfectly to what they want to do. I mean, it gets no better than that.
for how everyone talks about how the Chiefs have plot armor, the Lions kind of just created their own plot armor this game to where they just showed how. I mean, this is really just the Lions flexing how good of a team they are. Throwing, I'm gonna say 4 interceptions because, like we said, that there was that one interception that was that Hail Mary at the end of the half, so it's not really a true turnover because the Texans didn't get possession from it. But still, to turn the ball over 4 times and still come out with a victory, it's just a testament to how good that team is to be able to somehow win that game that they had no business winning. That is a team that, like, uh, being able to win in a bad performance like that is just a testament to how good they are. And I'm excited. I love watching this Lions team. I love how they're built. I love Dan Campbell. I wish he was the Saints coach because he was in the Saints organization, but nonetheless, it's fun to watch this team. I'm excited to see how they are moving forward. Another team that has become one of the most exciting teams to watch, though, the Arizona Cardinals. How about them leading their division, picking up a big win? I know the Jets are not a good team, but they still picked up a big win. And that offense, they're cooking. When you look at the stats, their stats don't seem that crazy for that game. But when you look a little bit deeper, the Jets actually did a very good job despite not putting up very many points. They did a very good job of chewing clock and being on the field. So the Cardinals only had 7 possessions on offense. What they did on them was they had, on their first 5 possessions, they had 4 touchdowns and a field goal. On their 6th possession, they drive it down to around midfield and then they punt it. On their 7th possession, Clayton Tune is in the game because it's such a blowout. I mean, talk about efficiency right there. That's an offense that's firing, and this is a team that I think is very similar to the Commanders, where they're an overachieving team, and particularly their defense. They do not have a talented defense at all. They have a bad defense, but their defense is playing decently recently because you have all these guys that are bought in, that are overperforming. That's a testament to the good coaching that's going on there. They got their head coach was the defensive coordinator at the Eagles, just like Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator at the Cowboys, who's the head coach of the Commanders. So you're seeing these defensive coaches who are able to get their defense bought in and have a lot of success. And meanwhile, the offense, I mean, this is what everyone said when everyone would talk about the Cardinals being a dark horse team. This is what the offense can be with this team. And they're just showing a lot of stuff. I mean, Kyler Murray, 22 for 24. Great efficiency. Just a great game all around. And, I mean, I know the Jets' defense is not that good, which is a little bit surprising. You know, they're supposed to be a much better defense than they were. They fired their defensive head coach. Their defense gets even worse. But the Jets, I mean, we know they're a dumpster fire. And honestly, the way that the Cardinals won is impressive, but beating the Jets isn't impressive anymore. But, I mean, hey, Cardinals, they are in position to win their division, especially with how well they played against their divisional teams so far. So they're another very fun team to watch.
You know, I will go ahead and toot my own horn because I remember coming up here week one and saying, "Look, y'all are gonna fucking respect Kyler Murray and company. Y'all will. I see something in that, and I believe him. I keep telling everybody, look, I had Kyler Murray as my dark horse MVP. I did. And if he plays like that, I don't see myself being completely off in that. I know he can do it. I think Kyler is an excellent quarterback. I do. He has his shortcomings. Jesus, shortcomings. That was unintended, not intended, but it happened. Um, he has his drawbacks, but I mean, what quarterback doesn't? Um, James Conner. I mean, how could you not love that guy? I mean, he's just the definition of just fucking workhorse. And then considering his story and where he came from, I mean, you just have to love the guy, and you have no choice but to root. He's such a good guy, such a hard worker, hard runner, and I would like to think if the Steelers kept him, their offense would be much better. I mean, he's improved in the passing game. He's a nice little target now. Caught I think a 44 yard uh reception, which if he had a little more speed, could have got in there for a touchdown. He was close, but I mean, I love what he's doing this year. I mean, we talk about how Joe Mixon is really handling, uh, really keeping that Texans offense up in the run game. I mean, obviously James Conner's not having inefficient games. I mean, some are, but I mean, it happens. But I mean, he's taking that run game to a whole nother level, and like just like Joe Mixon, I mean, there isn't really a back behind him. You have what's his name, Emercado, something like that, and then you have
Yeah.
Trey Benson, who I love Trey Benson coming out of college.
He had a
Um,
good game too. 10 carries, 62 yards.
yeah, he had a damn good game. I loved him. I wish the Saints would have got him. That was one of the guys that I really would like to see in black and gold. Um, Maserati Marv, he's there. And you know what? They figured out, we don't have to feed his ass 10, 12, 14, 16 times. We're just going to let him just ride the game flow. And Marv doesn't seem to be a guy like Gary Wilson who like really needs touch. He kind of reminds me of Chris Olave in this, where like Chris Olave is going to get his yards even if you throw him the ball only like 5 times. Like Gary Wilson, I mean, he had a game where he got targeted like 20 fucking times. Like that's what he is. He's a high usage, high target guy. I don't see Marv being that. He doesn't have to be, and he shouldn't be, for being honest. I think the team works better that way. And Trey McBride, I mean, fuck. I think I tweeted out. Can the Saints find a way to trade for Trey fucking McBride? I would do a lot to have a tight end like Trey McBride on the fucking Saints. I really would. He's just a guy who does a lot of good things right. And I like it. I think he's one of the better receiving tight ends in the league. And I think he's a very underrated tight end in the league. I personally have him as probably the third or fourth best tight end in the league. I do. I love watching him play. I mean, he like broke a tackle and hurdled a guy. I mean, fuck. What are we talking about? It's absurd. He gets a good target share. I like what the Cardinals are doing, man. And everybody was like, the defense is going to be a problem. It's like you said, man. The defensive coaches come in, get the team to buy in. Um, and you have the flip side. Shit happens every goddamn year. And look, I've already come here and said I'm an Aaron Rodgers hater to my last breath. If Aaron Rodgers has no haters anymore, it's because I fucking died. I don't like the guy, and this is just one of those situations where the Jets have bitten off a little more than they can chew. Um, I didn't think he was going to be that great. I saw him falling off when he was towards the latter years with the Packers. Uh, I didn't think that shit was going to work. I didn't think that experiment was ever going to work, and it fucking hasn't so far. And he gets, he gets Devontae Adams, he has Brees Hall, and he has Garrett Wilson, and still can't throw for 300 yards. I mean, I don't know what the fuck to tell the guy. I don't. I mean, we just seen Joe Burrow throw for 450 with basically one receiver. So I ain't buying that shit. They're fake. Their jury's fake over there in New York, New York Jets. Uh, their defense has gotten significantly worse since firing Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, no one is questioning how great of a defense coordinator he is. He's probably one of the greater defensive minds in the league. Um, and then that makes you wonder, man, maybe did they jump the gun a little bit here on firing him? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think it matters. I think he would have been out of his way at the end of the year. But I mean, I even look at Devontae Adams. I mean, I don't know if it's just he's washed too or what, but I mean, the guy wakes up, he leaves a shitty ass team, and his only two options were a shitty Saints team or a shittier Jets team. He goes to the shittier Jets team, and lo and behold, still shitty. So uh, I feel for him. Uh, cause it sucks. It sucks when you have to wake up a Raider, you get traded, you go to the Jets, and you basically just would have done just as good if you just would stay with the Raiders. But sure, he has his best buddy there. Um, I'm just not bought in to the Jets. And then them giving basically a second, well, it's a third, but it can turn into a second for Devontae Adams, and they're paying his contract. That's stupid. That was really fucking stupid. And I don't see it getting any better. We talked earlier about how they said the Giants might have a worse future. I think the Jets have a much fucking bleaker future than the fucking Giants. I think their situation might be a little hard to get out of because I don't see the Giants firing their coaches. Uh, they're gonna fucking clean house with the Jets. You need to figure out your quarterback, uh, and now you need to figure out your defense or get a defense coordinator. And I'm pretty sure they have 30 expiring contracts, if I'm correct. 30 expiring contracts. That is absurd. And they're aging. I don't know what you do. I don't. Um, Paying Devontae Adams sure as hell doesn't help. But if I'm a Jets fan, I don't like where this shit going. I don't. Um, but shout out Black Ops 6. The Cardinals are 3-0 since Black Ops 6 dropped. So for all that shit that everybody was talking, myself included, of watch out, a new Black Ops game, new Call of Duty game is gonna come out, and Kyler's gonna shit himself. Nope, he's done great. He's done fucking great. I think we said it 2 weeks ago that maybe that's just a testament to how good this Black Ops game is because the other Call of Duty games that came out been kind of low key buns, and then Kyler Murray plays like buns. But this one's a good game, and then turns out he plays good.
Yeah,
So
it either means that the game's incredible or the game's terrible.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna help Kyler. I'm gonna say it's good. He has a little Call of Duty deal now. Um, Shout out to him, man. I wish nothing but success for the Cardinals, man. I like seeing. It's like I said, I like seeing bad teams win. It's just better for the league. It just is. Um, you know what? Maybe they're ahead of schedule. I can't really say that. I mean, they kind of have. I would like to say that the clock was reset with Kyler with his injury and him coming back. Um, I like where they're going. I like where they're going. Uh, Having the what pick did they have last year? Two, three, something like
Yeah,
that. Four.
3 or 4.
Well, going from that to where you're at now, I think you're ahead of schedule. So, um, shout out to them. You have anything else to say about this game?
I mean, I think that really covers it. I mean, shout out. It's really just shout out to the Cardinals. I mean, Jets. They went all in on a quarterback that's washed. I mean, I think people, I think people give too much hate to Aaron Rodgers in a way that people always saying it's like, oh, how disappointing he's been. Now he's just an old quarterback. Like quarterbacks don't like. Not everyone's Tom Brady or Drew Brees, and even Drew Brees, his arm was falling off towards the end. Like usually when you hit this age, you just kind of retire. And I think that's kind of where Rodgers is at. He's at a retirement level quarterback. So I think people's expectations were just too high there.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, they had people spoiled, or they kind of fucked the game up a little bit because now people before them it was once you hit like 34, 35 as QB, you're just about cooked. But they extended that, you know. to 40, and now people are like, oh well, yeah, shit, yeah, you can play till you're 40. Nah, that that doesn't happen. Um, hey, people forget Drew Brees is an elite level athlete. All right, we seen him jump over fucking piles, and Derek Carr tried that same shit and got his ass stonewalled. So that's elite level right there, and that spin against the Falcons too. That's elite athleticism. Don't let nobody tell y'all otherwise. Um, can't remember what game I was gonna say next to talk about. I had it. Obviously, there's the Saints. I don't want to talk about them yet. Um, fuck. Oh, Vikings.
Ah,
Vikings game.
yes, the Vikings, your
Vikings
team.
game. Uh, hey, you know, I was Kelvin was going to win at some point with these fucking Vikings. All right, because at the end of the day, I knew goddamn well Sam Darnold was going to come back home to what he does best, and that is shit himself every now and then. And this was one of them games where he shit himself. Not a good game for Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was out there seeing ghosts. Um, I can't, I can't sit here and say, I knew this was going to happen. It was just, you knew how long it took me to get on board with the Vikings because at the end of the day, Sam Darnold is their quarterback, and I'm hard pressed to think that he can just continue being an MVP level QB for this fucking long. At some point, the dark magic will run out. Unless you're Patrick Mahomes, the dark magic never fucking runs out, apparently. Which we'll get to them soon. But Sam Darnold, he has a long track record of this shit. And shame, you know what? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool us twice, that's shame on us. Fool us fucking 7 times, whatever fucking number team he's on, that's definitely shame on us. Do I think he continues to play like ass? No. But I think if you're a Vikings fan, you just kind of have to come to grips with this is what you're going to get every now and then from Sam Darnold, and that's okay. Y'all know what Sam Darnold is. We know what Sam Darnold is. We knew that really he was playing, I guess, ahead of schedule. We used that term a lot tonight in terms of how great he was playing. But there's only so far you could go with that. I mean, it was tough watching. It was tough for Justin Jefferson. He had a pretty ineffective game for Justin Jefferson. Um, and winning by only a whopping 5 points to the Jaguars, who are like it's between them and the Panthers, and I guess the Giants now, and for like just the worst fucking teams imaginable. Um, did Trevor Lawrence play? I don't think he did. I know they were talking about.
No, it
Did he
was
play?
Mac Jones.
Yeah, Mac Jones. That's what I thought. Mac Jones in his hometown,
Where's Preston for
Jacksonville.
this?
Yeah, where the fuck is Preston? Because god damn it, Mac Jones still didn't get a win. But I mean, we talked about earlier how the Lions game was ugly. No, 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 no. This is an ugly fucking game. There is nothing intriguing about this. I mean, at least like the Lions scored points. But when you're in a game like this where we're turning the ball over, I don't even think Mac Jones really had a bad game. I don't think he threw for that many interceptions. I don't think he threw for 2 picks. So 2 picks for him, 3 for Darnold. No TDs were thrown between both quarterbacks. I mean, this is just the epitome of dog shit. And I mean, with the Lions game at least, yeah, throwing 5 picks is interesting, but that game was 26-23. This game is 12-7. And the thing with the Lions and Texans, both of those teams are good. The Vikings were 7-1 going into this. The Jags were 1-8, or no, 2-7. They were 2-7 going into this. So I say 71. They were 6-2, right? They were 6-2 going into this, and the Jags were fucking 2-7 going into this. So you would expect a lot better from the Vikings. And even though they got the win, it's just ugly. It's a bad win. A win's a win, yeah, but that shit is bad. I mean,
Well, really, the thing with this game is all they needed to do with that defense going up against Mac Jones is just play the simplest offense of all time. And I mean, the Jaguars did actually do a decent job getting pressure, like better than they've done most of the season. So maybe that's a bit of a concern for the Vikings. But all he had to do is just run a simple offense and then just let the defense take care of business. Instead, they tried to let the Jaguars win by trying to do too much. It's just I I don't know. It's just the Vikings have been in a slump, and this is just a bad performance. And it's a bad time to be slumping with the Lions playing so well.
tell you what, this is one of those games you can kind of say it's a trap game, but to me, this is a game where I feel like the Vikings went in there unprepared. And there's two types of unprepared teams. There's the team that's unprepared and they lose, even though they're a better team, like I would say the Cowboys and the Saints. Well, it turns out the Cowboys are a shitty team. But Cowboys went in there unprepared. They went in there with this idea of, hey, you know what? The Saints, they got a great win over the consensus worst team in the league. They're not going to do that to us. We are an NFC contender. We are a perennial playoff team now. We are one of the best teams in the NFC. They're not. They're going downhill. Sure, they just beat the shitty Panthers, but it ain't gonna happen to us. So it kind of puts them in that mindset of a more relaxed and ease mindset. Because let's just be honest, as a defensive guy, you know myself. I'll be honest. Whenever we're going against a team that it sucks, you know what? We kind of slack off a little bit more in practice, and our mindset kind of changes. We don't have that much. We don't have as high of a level of urgency as we usually would against a better team because it's just human nature. We tone it down a little bit. We don't want to beat up our bodies as much and drain our mental capacities trying to focus on a game where we should just dog walk these people. So you come into this, and I'm gonna put that on the coaches, right? At least for like the Cowboys, right? Like I said, they came in unprepared. They get smacked in the mouth by the Saints, and there's really nothing they can do about it because they were unprepared. They got in the situation of, you know what, we need to fight back. But when you start fighting back, you get frustrated, and you really can't play the game frustrated. You start playing frustrated, you start making more mistakes because you're trying to do too much. You're trying to make a play here and there, go outside of your job description, doing too much because you're frustrated. You want to make something happen. That's where most mistakes happen. It just starts compounding, and now you're in a fucking snowball of just fuck ups. And that's what happened. And obviously, the Vikings got a win, and they didn't get to that point. Yes, they got smacked in the mouth, but they are still a better team. So even when they're playing like shit, and the Jags are playing for their fucking lives, they still get a win because the Jags are just that bad. So I'm gonna put this on them just being unprepared this week. I'm gonna write this one off. Uh, yes, they are in a bit of a slump, but that's just the ebbs and flows of the game. You know, I wouldn't worry, but it did bring me to a question, and it brought me back to I believe it was week 2 or 3 on the podcast this season, where we asked what happens with Sam Darnold. Well, if Sam Darnold starts playing like this, like I have a sneaky suspicion he will, I think that makes the answer pretty fucking clear.
I mean, yeah, I think the Vikings. So I think I'm echoing on your end, but right now, but I think for the Vikings, it's just a team where it's just interesting to see because they started off the season really hot, looked great. Their defense, obviously, this game they're gonna look good because they're playing the Jaguars and they're playing Mac Jones. Like that's an easy matchup, but played well last game against the Colts defensively. 2 games before that is a bit tougher matchups, but struggled against the Lions, struggled against the Rams on defense. Is this a team falling back to earth or not? I don't know, but their schedule's pretty nice. They play at the Titans next week, at the Bears, versus the Cardinals, who could be hard, but they're at home, versus the Falcons, versus the Bears, and then before they finish the season at the Seahawks, at versus Packers, at Lions. They're in a great position to at the very least be a playoff team. So they can just stay the course and just make some improvements, and they at least have a shot. They will be in the playoffs, and then from there, it's really going to be up to Darnold. What can he do in a playoff setting against good teams? But I think that's really all we have for that game, though. Are there any other games you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Um, we can quickly talk about the Bears, and of course, I gotta talk about the Saints. We finally got the first win. Fuck, we didn't win all October. October is the worst month ever for Saints and fucking Pelicans, I guess, every fucking year. But uh, for the Bears, I just want to say this.
They suck.
You fire Shane Waldron. Fucking congrats. I mean,
Finally.
fuck.
Shouldn't have hired
I
him in
mean,
the first
goddamn.
place.
Shouldn't have fucking hired him. And then that brings me to what I was saying earlier about how coaching and making decisions at the gym shouldn't be this hard. Because Shane Waldron, I believe you said it earlier in the podcast a couple weeks ago. Shane Waldron was basically kicked out by the Seahawks. They didn't want him. They were like, "Look, this didn't work with you. This was bad. We don't want you." Same thing with Luke Getsy with the Bears last year. They kicked him out. They're like, "Look, this shit was ass. This shit sucked. Like you're awful." The Raiders go and hire the guy and then expect anything different. I mean, when it comes to these OCs, I believe that most of the time they are what they are. And yes, you have your outliers of guys who they leave a situation, they go to nowhere and they flourish. And that's just better players for their scheme. Maybe they learned a few things and gotten better. But I feel like a lot of times that's not the case. And it's unrealistic. Luke Getsy and Shane Waldron put on paper, they put the statistics, they put a lot of their decisions on display on the largest level, and time again, they have come up short and they have shown they are not capable of doing this job. They are not capable of being a play caller, they're not capable of being an offensive coordinator. So that to me tells me that GMs are overthinking shit and that these coaches are either buddy buddy with each other and all this shit. Oh yeah, I'm getting my buddy in. No, I don't care what you did good all these years ago. I like to think about what the fuck you did recently. You sucked ass with the Bears, Luke Getsy. I'm not hiring you. Also, shame on the Saints for interviewing Luke Getsy 2 times for the head coaching position. Dumbass motherfuckers. Mickey Loomis. We gonna get to his ass later. But Shane Waldron, he's got out of there. They finally fucking realized that he's not good. And I saw a play where Caleb Williams got sacked for the upteenth time, and none of his offensive linemen picked him up. You had the guy who sacked him or defender for the team help him up and then tap him on the head and start talking to him like, "Hey man, look, you know, it's okay." I'm looking at that like that is dog shit. That's horse shit. That's bullshit. That's all type of animal shits. Because what type of O line are you? You're getting your QB killed over and over and over and fucking over again, and you don't even have the balls to help pick him up. That's dog shit. I didn't like that, and I do want to see Caleb Williams bench, but not because he's ass, but because I'm worried about the guy's safety. I am. I and I seen that some guys want the Badgett kid to play. Sure, let him fucking go out, man. You know, protect Caleb Williams because at the end of the day, you don't want to kill your asset in their first year. There's nothing wrong with sitting the rookie their first year. It's okay. Patrick Mahomes worked out really fucking good by doing that. They could have easily played him over Alex Smith. They could have. They didn't. So, I'm not saying he's gonna turn to Patrick Mahomes and all, but um that turn that I was expecting the Bears to take, maybe they finally have it because they got rid of Shane Waldron. Maybe he's the reason. I think he is. I think their offense should be better. You do
I
have
mean, it
good
can't be
weapons.
worse.
You can't be worse. And look, DeAndre Swift looked like he's improved his fucking running back vision out of nowhere, I guess, after Dave talked shit about him that one week, and then he just been all right ever since. And I mean, like Aroma Dunze, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen, wide receiver with Cole Kmet as your tight end. I don't see why you're just not scoring more points. And I just feel like maybe that system was just either too difficult or just too demanding or just too shitty. Maybe all three for Caleb. But good on the Bears. It's only up from here. Can't get any worse than what the fuck was going on. I mean, I hope they figured out. I think they start picking it up because Shane Waldron's gone. But yeah, you got anything to say on them?
I mean, I think you've really covered it all. Just not a really good team with how they are. Shane Waldron, I mean, I've made my thoughts clear on him as an OC that I just don't think he's that good. Was not really doing anything that you'd want with the rookie quarterback, not helping him out and making the game easier. But I mean, here we are. They suck. I mean, if you want to go back to another two teams that suck, I know you wanted to talk about the Saints and the Falcons. And yes, I said two teams that suck.
The Falcons are in the ass category, y'all. If y'all didn't know, they are forever in the ass category. Um,
Especially after this loss.
I remember we talked about it, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We said there is a thing called the interim head coach boost. And I tweeted this out before the game. I said, look, y'all, I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints came out of this game firing. Their O line plays well, their D line plays well, the team is energized, and we go ahead and win this game. Huh. Boy, don't I know my Saints. That's exactly what the fuck happened. Um,
Hey, shout
I
out
do have
Rizzy. He's awesome.
shout out to fucking Rizzy, man. He
Clogged the
almost
toilet to start the day and
clogged
then
the toilet.
shit on
Almost
the
got
Falcons.
killed at the end of the game. Shit on the Falcons. He stuffed the fucking toilet up with the Falcons' fucking bodies, whatever the fuck the case may be. Shout out to him. He's an honest guy. He's a fucking. I think Marquez Valdez Scanlon said today he's like a Sour Patch Kid. You know, love the dude. We've already talked about him a little bit earlier, but that interim head coach boost is real. Now, do I think it'll sustain? Probably not. Um, but there are things I want to talk about with the team, and that is this was the first game that we got to see Joe Woods be the guy as full time defense coordinator and play caller. He did mention I take what the defensive did or the defensive side of the ball did with a grain of salt because I know how this game works. I know how defense works. I know how operations work between switching coaches. That defense is still a Dennis Allen defense. You're not going to see a Joe Woods defense probably until next year if he's retained by whoever the coach is, or towards a couple weeks down the line. This right here is hold on, let me go click play on this. This is a situation. This is a situation where you got a guy who is. I think he said it too. He was running off of a bunch of plays. Like he had a menu of a bunch of different things that Dennis Allen has installed. But obviously, he's calling different things and he's modifying things, adding his twist. But to a core, to a structure, to a foundation, is still a Dennis Allen defense. So I'm more interested to see what the defense does later in the season when you start seeing more and more and more Joe Woods. I will say something that was different with Joe Woods' defense was simulated pressures. We don't run a lot of simulated pressures. I don't think we ran simulated pressures with Dennis Allen this year, but he did. There was a play with Pete Werner and Demario Davis, I believe, where Demario was kind of sitting in a zone. He had to kind of read which way he was going, and if Demario would have sat down on like an in route or some shit that was on the right side of the field, Kirk could have flew that bitch up over the top. Well, the thing was, Kirk thought that shit was open, but ended up being picked off by the Honey Badger because of our simulated pressure. It went one way, but in reality, we wanted Kirk to think it was going that way so he can throw it right there, and then we can go ahead, jump through, and pick it off with Honey Badger, and that's what happened. Great fucking execution. Um, Firing Todd Grant or demoting Todd Grantham, I should say, seemed to work wonders because Cam Jordan finally came alive. Peyton Turner was a fucking factor in the game. Chase Young got a strip sack. I mean, all three of these things I just said in the year of 2024, I don't think we were ever gonna fucking say. But I got to say it. And you know what? Cam Jordan, I'll give him his credit. He loves sacking Falcons quarterbacks. And he fucking continued the trend. Got his first sack of the season, which is crazy to fucking say. It's like week 10. Um, but that D line firing or demoting Todd Grantham seemed to work wonders. That D line played differently. The rush lanes were solid. Now, of course, I say the rush lanes were solid, but it's a fucking immobile quarterback. Like he's a statue quarterback. I'm sure if we play, someone a little more mobile, then we'll really be tested to see what that D line does. But the rush lanes look good. Pocket integrity looked terrible on Kirk Cousins end. Thanks to that. Um, Chase Young looked like he was playing with more effort. We seen him give up on plays too many times this year, but like he was playing with effort. Cam Jordan got himself one. Peyton Turner looked great. He showed flashes, but Marcus Davenport also showed flashes, so I ain't gonna buy in yet until he does that shit consistently and he doesn't get hurt. The DBs. Alontae Taylor has assumed the role of Paulson Debo. 3 penalties on him. Not ideal. Rough game for him. I know they moved him to outside. Honestly, I would probably keep him in his position. I would like to see more Rico Payton. I think I believe in him. Fun fact, played against him last year. Plays in our division here. Um, for Pitt, who we actually play this week. My final game will be against Rico Payton's team. Um, very well, he could be at that game. So I'll let y'all know. But in terms of offense, defense, I ain't gonna worry about. Like I said, I'll evaluate them in the coming weeks when we start seeing more Joe Woods. But D line had a much better impact against a decent O line. I'm okay with that. Offense, Marquez Valdez Scantling, crazy. He has more chemistry with fucking Derek Carr than he did Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I mean, that's unbelievable. And Aaron Rodgers. That's just unfucking believable.
I mean, he
However,
is he is exactly what Carr wants, just someone to go chuck a couple deep balls to.
but see, that's the thing because I would want him to do that with Olave, but he doesn't. So, you know, but
Well,
what I want
the
to talk
problem
about,
is, and it's what we went back to saying, Olave is not able to use his skill set because he has to be the number one receiver. So he has to be the guy to move the chains every play. If he was able to be the number two, and we had it, because he was supposed to be paired with Michael Thomas. And when Michael Thomas left, we didn't replace Michael Thomas with a Michael Thomas receiver. We got Shaheed in there, but he's a completely different profile. We don't have that chain mover receiver who can run some slants, make some catches, and then go move the chains for you. And that's really a big loss. So it
I
changed.
will say,
Go ahead.
if the Saints want to be stupid, I wouldn't really say stupid. It'll be fun. They want to be a little dumb. They will sign T Higgins. I think T Higgins would be wonderful. I mean, there's a lot of great receivers in the draft, but if they don't get any that they like, um, and if they want to spend the money, fuck it, go get T Higgins. But going with what you were saying,
Well, basically, what I was saying is so receiver profiles is important. Like, if you just got, I mean, obviously, if it's a good enough receiver, like if you just put a bunch of Jamar Chases or a bunch of Justin Jeffersons or a bunch of Tyreek Hills in the field, it would work. But unless you're that good, you want to have guys that complement each other. Because Rashid Shaheed, I mean, he is a great player, but if you just put a bunch of him on the field, it'd be pretty easy to defend because if you take away the explosives, you wouldn't really have much success in the intermediate routes. So, going back to what you're saying with Olave, the reason why he's not really used on deep shots is because that's Shaheed's role, since we don't have anyone who's really going to run intermediate routes, who's going to go get open to move the chains. So Olave's the best bet at that. So they have him doing that role. If you went and you had a Michael Thomas, and the reason I reference Michael Thomas specifically is because the vision with Olave was originally to pair the two. Thomas just kept getting hurt, and he could never come back. But the Saints failed to replace that profile and they don't have a chain mover receiver like that. Like all you need is a guy who's just going to run slants and move the chains. Then you pair him with your more explosive receivers, and that's a nice little duo, nice little trio that you have there. So it's that really just goes back to the failure to construct the roster because you knew that you're moving on from Thomas, but you didn't replace him. But that's really what I'm saying is Olave's just not being able to do that role because he's having to do a different role.
Yeah, man, you hit that. You hit down the fucking head. I hate it. I hate that that's where we're at with Olave, and it's gotten him killed. Rest in peace, Chris Olave. Um, I would imagine that we go and get a bigger body receiver. I don't know with this team though. Um, but it would be really nice to see rookie year Chris Olave in action. Basically, he was on a lot of deep shots, just couldn't get the ball to him. Um, or Jameis with Chris Olave, you know. But once again, it's hard to get the ball to him. Just need a QB to get to him. Um, but the thing I wanted to say with the offense, I could see the Rizzy coaching. I mean, I'm just gonna go out and say, "Hey, Preston, what's up, man?" Um, I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, Rizzy already is a better decision maker so far than Dennis Allen. He is making coaching decisions much quicker. He seems to be less confused out there. He has a great sense of what the fuck is actually going on and what's happening. I seen him throw a challenge flag almost fucking immediately on a play that should have been challenged, and he won. I'm like, yeah, this guy's dialed in. He's talking to everybody on the sideline. He's keeping everyone back on the sideline. Like he's animated on the sideline. Like he is locked the fuck in. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Haven't seen that out of a head coach in 3 years. So that was nice to see. But my thing is, I have an extra gripe with Clint Kubiak. I feel like this game we should have won by more points, and I feel like Kubiak he's not adjusting in the second half. I don't think I remember any game this year where he's actually like outright
No,
adjusted
not at all.
in the second half. And I'm be honest, look, he probably has the best opening game script out of any OC in the league because we do score just about on every first drive this year with him as the OC and the play caller. He has an excellent opening game script, and we all know how the OCs they like 15 or so plays, and that's like scripted that they're going to run no matter what. First 15 plays of the game. He has an excellent script. But it just seems from that point on, and at least in the first half, his first half script, I'll even extend his first half scripts are usually pretty solid. But once a fucking team adjusts, once a defense coordinator adjusts, I don't ever see Clint adjust. And we just get fucking stalled out in the second half.
And
And that's what
that is
happened.
exactly what I was saying earlier in the year, where when the run game's taken away, he can't adjust because the entire offense, like the Saints have the highest run rate in the entire league. The entire offense is predicated off of that run game because it is a Shanahan offense to the extreme. We're going to do all these different runs and use them to go open up the play action passing game. When the run game's not going and the play action passing game can't work, there's no pivot.
And I that. And I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, Clint, and I've already. It seems to me like I was wondering like, okay, like after the Panthers and Cowboys game, I'm like, how much more of a bag does Clint have? I will say Clint went his bag with that awful Alvin Kamara drop. I mean, I love that play call. I thought that was a perfect play call. I thought it was a perfect decision. I would have thrown the ball in that spot. I don't like the conservative. Oh, we're gonna run the ball to get there 3 times. Because look, these motherfuckers in the NFL, they can score in 50 seconds with no timeouts pretty fucking easily. So I don't buy that bullshit of you gotta run their timeouts out. No, fuck that. I don't want to give them the ball back. Dennis Allen would have 100% ran the ball there. He would have told him to run the ball. I know it. I've seen him do it. We've all seen him do it a million times. So I like the decision. Awful drop by Kamara. Can't fucking believe it. It's like I just got stabbed by my own mom when I seen that shit. I can't believe he did that to us. And I thought we were for sure gonna lose the fucking game there. But god damn it, the first game without Dennis Allen, the fucking defense makes a clutch fucking play when you need it. I couldn't fucking believe it. So I'm just guessing maybe this was all just Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen defenses in the last minute when we're either up and we need him to make a stop, they don't fucking ever get the stop. They actually got the fucking stop. I was so happy about that. I was so happy about that. But back to Clint, I just would like him to stop. I've seen the same plays ran multiple times now. Maybe every team does that, but I watch the Saints the most by far. That goddamn toss to the right behind Penning, I fucking hate that damn play. That is like the new Jamal Williams 2nd and 10 run that fucking Pete Carmichael loved to do last year. The IZ with Jamal Williams 2nd and 10 gets nowhere. I hate that fucking play, and I'm tired of seeing it. I would really wish he stopped and throw that shit away. But Kubiak is worrying me, and maybe this is just because he's a first year guy, and you know, eventually teams are going to figure him out, and defense coordinators have figured him out, and it's just I would like him to not be so damn stubborn and try to get a little more creative. It just seems to me like he once he gets a, adjusted to, he's just gonna keep running his fucking script. It's like he has a script for the whole game instead of a script for the first half, maybe the first drive, first two drives, and then you start running off a menu. Nah, he's just nope. This the script for the whole game. No matter what the fuck, it ain't changing. But unless he gets that figured out, this offense is going to continue doing what it's doing. We're going to be great in the first half. We're going to suck ass in the second half. So, I mean, if we're going to be a first half team, start fast. We're going to need the defense to lock the fuck in the second half because they're going to have to win the game. So, the offense wins the game first half, defense wins the second half. So, but shout out to the Saints, man. Beat the fucking Dirty Birds. Got a first win in what feels like fucking forever. Snap a 7-game losing streak.
Shout out, and
Hallelujah.
hey, now let's go lose out. We mission accomplished. Falcons are beaten. You can tank now.
We can take now. Uh, Rizzy, I hope Rizzy's still on this staff next year in some capacity. I love that guy. Players love him.
I do
He's
too.
already a better coach than Dennis Allen. 1-0 as a head coach. Um, but I will quickly say this too. Um, Mickey Loomis, you pissed me off. I don't know if you've seen it. Uh, how it's no surprise that Mickey Loomis was against firing Dennis
Mm-hmm.
Allen, as reports shown, and this was a Gail Benson decision. And we have come up here many times, Dave, and we say, hey, this is going to have to be a Gail Benson decision because Mickey Loomis just refuses to fucking do it because that's his butt buddy. And I'm gonna be honest, I think he traded Marshawn out of spite. I do because we're paying. Look, I know it. We get his money off the books. We got assets for him, so cool. But I felt like we should have traded. Like, if we're going to do that, like, oh, you telling me we're going to get assets, but we only trade one guy. Like, I would have fucking sent Jawan Johnson off for a fucking Subway sandwich. I would have sent a couple other guys out of here that are accounting for money on the books. You can't tell me we're getting assets and then only trade him. So I don't agree with that. We're paying the rest of his fucking salary this year, and we still have to pay him $31 million in dead money next year. So it's like,
I mean, I think really what it is next year they are going to, for the first time ever, actually blow it up, actually eat some cap hits, and I think it's a good plan. I mean, I think we'll definitely get into this more, but we'll get into it more another time because we've been yapping for way too long. But I mean, it's what they need to do. Like this year, go draft a Will Campbell or a top offensive lineman or a top blue chip pass rusher. Go build the team around, and then the next year, when you probably have a high pick again, go draft a quarterback, or if you don't like any quarterbacks, go draft some more pieces and go try and find a Baker Mayfield, a Sam Darnold, someone in free agency. See how they can do. If they succeed, great. If not, then in maybe the next draft you're able to get your quarterback, but you've put them in a position to succeed. just like the Lions did, just like the Vikings did, just like the Bucks did, just like the Texans did. All these teams built around their quarterbacks. The Saints need to do that. But we've talked way too long about everything, really. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to say?
Um, welcome, Preston. That's my closing
I can't
thoughts.
believe y'all been yapping for so long, bro. Damn.
Why are you
I'm,
surprised by this every week, man?
I mean, y'all had enough time to like. I had a 2.5 hour conversation, drove to go see Lexi sing, and then I'm back home now, and y'all are still fucking yapping.
I've only been
hey,
going for 2 hours. This is one of the shorter ones in my
this is
opinion.
one of the shorter ones. It's only been 2 hours and 10 minutes,
I
and
guess
we
I
saved the
guess y'all
Saints
started
talk
later than I
for the
thought y'all
very
did.
end.
Yeah, and I ain't even getting my bag for real. So, you know, this was pretty short. I mean, look,
Oh,
you
all I'm gonna
missed.
say about the Saints though, bro, like it's an interim coach. Week one, they always win, and then week two they shit the bed.
And I'm fine with that because week
We're
one was
okay
the
with that. We
Falcons. The rest of the
just
weeks are
beat
the
them.
tank.
Give me,
That's
give
fair.
me,
That's
give me division wins, and I'm okay with it. Like, go beat the Bucks one time, beat the Falcons one time. Go rape the Panthers, I guess.
Honestly, I
But
kind of hope we lose to the Bucks because I want them to win the division since we're not. Was I mean, I'm not gonna say I like the Bucks, but I don't see them as a rival. Like the only time they've been relevant in their history for a rivalry is when they had Brady. Otherwise, they were the team that the other three teams in the division just didn't really care about. So,
still not even a rivalry. Brady's only beaten us one time.
mm.
Like that's obviously it was in a playoff game, but still, it was only one time. Shout out Jerry Cook. Fuck him.
I get that. I
Um,
mean, that's how I
Also shout out
felt
Drew
about us beating the
Brees
Jet. To be
just
fair,
being
shout out Drew
broken.
Brees. Shout out Joe Burrow getting the Drew Brees prime treatment. Shout out Mac Jones for doing what he does best, lose. Um,
Mac
shout
Jones
out Drake
again.
May because Preston's
On
here.
God,
Shout out Drake May.
Drake Bay is better than Caleb Williams. I mean, that's we knew this already though, so it's all right.
And you know what? The biggest shout out of them all. I also gotta say this. Salute to Marshawn Lattimore. Appreciate you, bro. I know he ain't ever listening because Devontae Adams clearly didn't listen to the podcast. But
Well,
shout out
thankfully.
to fucking Marshawn. Best Saints DB ever. I don't care what anybody says. He's in the fucking Saints Hall of Fame the second he fucking retires. Um, Changed the entire course of this defense when he got here as a rookie. I mean, defensive rookie of the year. I mean, all pro guy, consistent Pro Bowler. Shout out to him. I'm gonna miss him. Appreciate everything. I understand why it couldn't last. He still got love for Nola. Nola gonna love him. Hopefully one day he finds his way back. Um, but sucks. I really
In the
sucks to
words
see
of
him
Mike
go.
Tomlin, when he's old and cheap.
Yep, when he's old and cheap. But shout out to Marshawn. Salute to him for holding it down for us for so long. I'm gonna miss the Mike Evans battles. That made Bucks games really fucking fun. And hopefully Alontae Taylor can keep it up. Alontae Taylor looks like he will punch off on somebody. So
As a 4 to 5 year Mike Evans owner in fantasy, I've owned him every year. I'm glad that Lattimore's gone.
for
Just
Not
those
in
gonna
two
lie.
time
games,
for him to be
he's not getting
washed.
any points.
He's not washed this year,
So
but by the time you're paying off for it, for Lattimore being gone, it might be at the wash stage of his career. So maybe
and
that's it. Maybe Lattimore knew that Mike Evans' time is up, so he could move on.
so now he can go and cook AJ Brown for the rest of his fucking prime. And CD he said, "Fuck it, let me go and fuck over them two. I'm tired of beating up on Drake London
and
and
Malik.
fucking yeah, and Malik. Oh God, he has a lot of work now. He said, fuck beating up on Mike Evans and fucking Drake London. I'm gonna go beat up on Malik, CD, and AJ, and maybe Devontae Smith too. Fuck it, I'm gonna abuse all of them." So shout out Marshawn. Biggest shout out though goes to Darren Rizzi. You want to know? It's always nice to get your first win as a coach. No shout outs for Mickey Loomis because his bitch ass did not hand Rizzi the game ball. He sure as hell handed Dennis Allen his game ball when he got his first win as a Saints head coach. He did not for Darren Rizzi. He did not hand the ball. Alvin Kamara had to hand him that fucking ball. Shout out to Captain. Kamara voted team captain this week. Um, so yeah, man. Shout out Darren Rizzi, man. Shout out the Riz Meister, the Riz Master, whatever the fuck you want to call him. That's dub. Now continue with the mission, motherfucker, and lose some damn games.
Roll the tanks.
Roll the fucking tanks. Anybody else? Got anything else?